4 to 5 days changed the language and ended the Viking Age. On January 5th, 1066, King Edward the Confessor died, having no children. After this, there were many people trying to take over the spot of ruling over England, including Tostig Godwinson, Harold Hardrada, and William, Duke of Normandy. Having Harold Godwinson ruling over Wessex, Tostig ruling over Northumbria, Geirth ruling over East Anglia, and Leo F1 ruling over Kent, there was going to be some fighting all on its own since they were all brothers. Plus, there were other people that were promised the land of England by Edward, including Harold Hardrada, the last of the Vikings, William, Duke of Normandy, because Edward and William were good friends, and Harold Godwinson, since he was already ruling over England. After a discussion between Edward and Harold Hardrada thought that Edward was promising him the land, and William was sworn to by Harold Godwinson over Christian relics that he would get England. Since England already liked Harold Godwinson the most because of his battle skills, they pretty much let him be the new king. On the day of Edward's funeral, Harold Godwinson kinged himself the new ruler of England, which made a few people mad and resulted in a few battles. Harold Godwinson was in the south of England expecting an attack from William, Duke of Normandy, because of the ships he had been building. After summer and spring passed with Harold being in the south, his resources were getting low, and he dismissed his army to go back to their homes in late September, and he returned to London. After a week, there was an invasion from Hardrada. Hardrada entered River Humber and went to Yorkshire before going to York, having an army of about 10,000. Once Hardrada got to England, Tostig joined Hardrada, trying to take over his brother Harold. York tried fighting Hardrada, but wasn't able to, then being taken over by Hardrada. Hardrada set up camp east of the Stamford Bridge while waiting for resources and hostages from York. There were people watching the west and the east. After Harold Godwinson found this out, he left from London to York. Along the way, he picked up an army of about 7,000 to 15,000 men. Harold Godwinson went from London to Tadcaster in just 4 days. It's a 185-mile distance. Arriving here, Harold Godwinson let him and his army rest. After finding out where Hardrada's camp was, he rushed to it. Since Harold Godwinson got to their camp so fast, he caught Hardrada and his army off guard and surprised them. Hardrada's army ended up leaving their armor in the ships, leaving them in a huge disadvantage. The people keeping watch of the west were attacked first, but soon killed. Then moving forward, there was the Stamford Bridge. In it was a single axeman holding a battle axe. He killed up to 40 people but died after a spear hit his groin from under the bridge. After he was killed, the Anglo-Saxons moved on. By this time, the Vikings formed a wall. It took a little bit to get through, but after Hardrada died from an arrow to the throat and Tostig's death from his brother, the Viking army stopped. England had won and made the Vikings swear to never attack them again. The Vikings left with 24 out of the 300 ships they had because of how many died. After the death of Harold Hardrada, this marked the end of the Viking Age. Hardrada was known as one of the last Vikings. Robert, Duke of Normandy, died, and William took his place. The people in Normandy did not like William and called him William the Bastard. The reason William was promised the land of England by Edward was because Edward and him were good friends. Harold Godwinson also swore over Christian relics that William could have England, but this was only because his family was being held hostage. While Harold Godwinson was guarding the south, William was actually being blocked from the northern winds, so this was protecting William from Harold. He did try to sail his boat in the northern winds, but the boat crashed. Early August, all the boats were finished being built. William left on the 27th of September toward England, since the northern winds stopped. He arrived at Pevensey Bay in Sussex. Harold Godwinson traveled to the capital in 1 week after the victory with the Vikings. He had a week-long feast. He then took another week to prepare for the battle with William. He kept the soldiers that fought for the Battle of Stamford Bridge, and he got some new soldiers. Godwinson could have gotten more people, but he decided to go because of how confident he was from the last battle. They wanted to try to surprise William, just like they did to the Vikings. This failed because people saw the Anglo-Saxons and told William. The Anglo-Saxons chose a spot which was on a hill in between trees. This ensured that they would only have to do defense. William had combined arms, which means that he had a mix of different soldiers. He had his front line as his archers, second line back was his infantry, and his very back line was his mounted force. Starting off the battle, William had his infantry shoot at Harold's army. Since Harold's army was uphill and they had a wall of shields, the arrows didn't do much at all. At this point, he sent his infantry and his mounted forces to Harold. They were both pretty evenly matched, but then William's army thought that William was dead. Hearing this, they started to retreat. Even though Harold told his army not to follow the retreating army, they did anyway. Once William's army found out that he wasn't dead, they then started to attack the broken wall. They then started to take out Harold's army and eventually killed Harold and gained the victory. Harold died from an arrow to the eye because one of William's infantry had a higher shot. William had 7,000 to 15,000 men and lost 2,000 of them, and Harold had 5,000 to 13,000 men and lost more than 2,000. During the battle, it was said that William actually had the relics Harold swore over. William was now William the Conqueror instead of William the Bastard, since he now ruled over England. Any town that refused to follow his ways in England, he destroyed. This was the start of the Norman conquest. The Battle of Hastings changed the way we talked, adding words like government, judge, castle, crown, and more. It also changed the alphabet and words relating to why and where. Before it was why with the H in the front. These two battles were very close together and very stressful, especially for England. Both of these battles could have been avoided if it wasn't for Edward promising everyone his land.